There are no shortcuts to getting highly coveted press coverage for your brand, only smart cuts like the DIY PR project. Learn how to grow your brand's credibility with PR on a budget with me by your side. This program is your all-in-one membership with expert training, customizable templates, and a supportive community to cheer you on every step of the way. Join us and start growing your business with free publicity today. Sign up now at diy-pr.com. What does it really take to create a fulfilling life where you're a high-achieving professional with big goals and limited time? In this week's episode of Grow Your Wealth, I'm joined by Dr. Mani Javvaji, a Columbia University-trained dermatologist, skin cancer surgeon, entrepreneur, and intentional living mentor for a powerful conversation about redefining balance, optimizing your time, and creating room to enjoy your life outside of work. Dr. Mani opens up about her journey through the high pressure world of medicine and how it led her to embrace time management, boundary setting, and joy filled routines. We talk about practical strategies to ease mental load, the difference between fast and slow mornings, why delegation is the ultimate power move, and how small changes like writing everything down or making time for active leisure can spark big transformation. If you're feeling the weight of doing it all, this episode will leave you with the inspiration and tools to take back your time and live with more intention. Here's Dr. Mani. Dr. Mani, welcome to the Grow Your Wealth podcast. It is such an honor to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you for being here. You have had an incredible journey. You're a Columbia trained dermatologist, skin cancer surgeon, entrepreneur, and now a mentor in intentional living. Tell us a little bit about your journey. I'd love to know specifically more about you, your career in healthcare, and where this calling for balance comes into play. You're not just another dermatologist posting on social media. You've really created this personal brand surrounding your day job and kind of your mission as well. Bring it together for us.
Yeah. Well, my journey has had a lot of ups and downs. I fell in love with dermatology during medical school, but what a lot of people don't know or realize is that dermatology is one of the most competitive specialties to get into. So I had a lot of pressure during medical school to do really well on all of my exams, be at the top of my class in order to get into the field that I loved. And that meant I had to sacrifice a lot during my 20s. So I, no joke, would study for like 14 hours a day. Like I would go to class, and then when I wasn't in class, I would be studying. And then somehow also I did research on the side and wrote papers. So it was very crucial that I developed time management because I was juggling really high level projects. And at the same time, though, it was kind of a dark time for me. I told myself, once I became a dermatologist, I had to find a different balanced way of living. And that's kind of what's brought me here today. I'm very intentional with how I use my time and how I manage it. And I try to show other busy professional women how they can do the same.
Thank you for that. That's amazing. So, when you say that you try to help other busy professional women do the same, you're vocal about this on social media, which I love. How are you reaching these women, and what are some of the struggles that you are seeing in them as well, too?
Yeah, so I like to make very practical, kind of bite-size, real-world tips that busy professional women can use. And I think the biggest challenges that I see in women in their 30s and 40s mainly are a lot of mental um, load and a lot of just juggling not only the physical tasks that they need to do, but the mental energy that it takes to figure out what needs to get done. And so I try to come up with ways and try to share ways that are very easy and practical that can be really effectively implemented to kind of take off some of that mental load. Because, women in our 30s and 40s, we're working, we're professionals, we have families, we're probably also running the household too at the same time. And yes, we may have partners that can help, but sometimes our partners don't, and all of that falls on us. And so I really try to share tips that are geared towards women like that because I know exactly what that feels like. And I would love to have little ways that we can implement um, strategies to be able to take and lighten some of that load.
I love that. I mean, that's like most of the theme of this podcast as well too, and especially when it comes to time management. Would you agree with us? I mean, there's only so much time, and I mean, probably even less time that there is per day, less energy that we have, right, to do all the things. When it comes to time management, especially for someone like you and the women that you inspire as well too, would you say that prioritization is so important? Because all of those things that you mentioned, work, family, staying healthy, all of these things, like, my goodness, I mean, they're important to everyone, but you can't do everything simultaneously. So when it comes to time management, how important are priorities, and how do you prioritize when everything feels like a priority to you?
Yes. Prioritizing is everything. It's super important. I like to think about my to-do list in terms of time sensitivity. So,
Mm.
what are things that are time sensitive that absolutely need to be done this week? Or even this day. And then I also like to have a list of to dos that are sort of like medium in priority, meaning like they need to get done and they're important, but there's not as much of a time deadline for those. And then lastly, another way I like to think about and prioritize tasks and things that I need to get done. I think with women, we are so busy and we're always trying to do everything. We really overlook and undervalue delegating. So I like to think of, okay, what do I absolutely have to do? Like, what on this list is something that only I can do? And by thinking in that way, it really helps us delegate other tasks that I think a lot of times we just by default do on our own. So I'm a really big fan of automating things. So I use Instacart all the time. I hardly ever go to the grocery store anymore. I'm also a really big fan of TaskRabbit, which really you can hire almost anyone to do anything on. But I think it's really helpful for like those small household tasks like hanging up picture frames or like mounting a TV, like tasks that seem like difficult to get done and like they kind of you want to get them done, but they never do. It's easy to just be able to get on there and find someone to do that. So all of those things I think are great ways of thinking about how to go about our to-do list and the tasks that we need to get done.
Oh my gosh, from the rooftops, Dr. Mani. Yes, it's so important, right? I mean, like, what are the things that only you can do, right? Like, that's where we should really be spending our time, because those are the needle movers in our life and our
Exactly.
business. As much as I love decorating and things like that, I love the finished product more than
Yeah.
anything, right? And so I often think about that too. Like, for so long, I don't know why, but I was like so stubborn about hiring someone to clean my house. And I know that sounds ridiculous because most business owners, high performing women, like, they did this ages ago. And I just felt like, no, it's not, I'll do it. I actually kind of like to do it, put on a podcast, whatever. And then, not only was it eventually starting to stress you out, because it's not like cleaning is at the top of most
Right.
high achieving women's priorities. It's
Right.
actually ends up feeling very much like a task.
Yeah.
But I always think back, like, okay, yes, I'm giving away my money to hire someone to do this thing for me, but how much is my time worth? It's like,
Exactly.
and like, I feel like no better way to own your time and manage your time than if you can, like, buy back some of it.
100%.
money is nothing but just an exchange of currency for our time, right?
Right, right, exactly. I feel so strongly about that because once you kind of figured out like an hourly rate of what your time is worth, it's
Mhm.
really easy to objectively gauge, okay, is this cleaning service worth it? And 9 times out of 10, the answer is usually, well, I shouldn't say 9 times out of 10, but usually the answer is yes.
Mhm.
And the feeling of coming into a house that's been cleaned, it just the amount of joy and happiness that that brings me and the amount of, like, just lightness and freedom that I feel from that is so invaluable. So, I think, yeah, that is definitely a hard one is, like, to push for like, okay, you know what? It seems because it seems really privileged. Like it seems like, oh my gosh, who am I to like hire a housekeeper and like have someone like clean my toilets and stuff like that when like I should be doing that. But definitely it takes off a lot of that mental load of in the back of our mind we have like, okay, well I've got to do these things for work, but I've also got to clean the house. It's looking kind of bad. We're going to have company over,
Mm.
and having someone to be able to do that and then taking that off your plate is just huge.
Oh, totally. And you're giving someone else a job, right? So, like we can't do all the jobs. So if we can, kind of give back to the workforce is the way that I look at it, that's
Yeah,
great. And it frees up our capacity to, go out there and change the world, right? Like
exactly.
however, I often say, and this is where my mindset really comes into play, right? Like I'm not curing cancer, but you kind of are. So let's talk a little bit about that, particularly in your industry of healthcare, which I know working with some healthcare providers at Factor, it's a demanding industry. And when you are doing the important work of time management, prioritizing what's important to you, which again is how we can kind of achieve this balance, if you want to call it. um you've talked about this on your socials before, this importance of then being very present in what you are doing when you're, seeing patients for most of the day and then like switching over to, Dr. Mani, not a dermatologist at my 9 to 5, like how do you really work on being present, kind of like turning it on and off? Are there certain mindset shifts that you employ to kind of toggle between work and life, or are they all kind of one and the same for you?
No, I definitely there is a mindset shift and I kind of have this mantra which is when I'm working, I'm fully working and when I'm not, I'm not.
Mm.
And this is kind of stemmed from um a very specific moment I remember in med school, which is early on I would notice a lot of my classmates studying together in groups, but they would also be socializing. And I kind of did that too in the beginning. But then I quickly realized that that really doesn't work. You don't get the benefits of either. I didn't really get very good studying done, but then I also didn't want to be socializing in the library. So I quickly learned like when I'm working, I want to be working and I want to be really efficient and focused at it. And then when I am done with that, I want to be able to have fun and really fully have fun. And so that simple shift kind of changed everything for me. And it's given me really clear boundaries. And then it's allowed me to be really efficient at work and then enjoy my time off. So I use that mindset all the time, even today.
Oh, yes, so important. And so when someone challenges your boundaries, do you have any advice for how to navigate around that? Again, especially in healthcare, right? Patients calling after hours, needing to talk to you, or they think they need to talk to you, or teammates that have requests from you. How do you navigate that? Because I can understand like how much of a difficult position that can put you in. Any tips around that as well too?
Yeah, I think when it comes to boundaries, so when it comes to patients and messages and things like that is really my priority, and patient care is number one for me. So I definitely address that, and that is really important to me. But when it comes to other things like other like work adjacent things that come up that people need me for, or other activities or events in a professional setting. I think it's important for all of us as professional women to be a little bit okay, be more okay with saying no sometimes. I think we have this social pressure to always perform and to lean in and to do everything. And we need to be a little bit more comfortable with saying no. And because everything has an opportunity cost. So if you're saying yes to everything, what are you also underlyingly saying no to? And that's an important point to think about.
Definitely. I've heard a saying around that, when you say yes to the things that aren't meant to for you, uh, you're ultimately saying no to yourself, which I
Yeah,
think is always so
I
powerful
love
as
that.
well
Yeah,
too. So
very true.
such a good reminder. So one of the other things that I read about you that I thought was so interesting, and I actually just recently had her episode was shared yesterday. Paige Ballingy, she's a mental health expert, owner of Holistic Therapy and Wellness. And she talked about manifestation, which reminded me about what you've shared on your social channels about visualization, which is kind of a form of manifestation, right?
Yes.
And you like to kind of start your day with visualizing success. Can you share more about this really interesting morning ritual? How does this set the tone for your day too? I love it.
Yes. So I am a big fan of starting my day with a loose plan of how I want things to go. It's easy to like get into this like very tight, like, okay, this is exactly how I want my day to go. But I try not to have that mindset and have kind of like a loose map of how I want it to go. But in general, I love my morning routine. I call it some mornings fast mornings and some mornings slow mornings. My fast
Mm.
mornings are when I have to do Mohs surgery all day and I'm seeing patients all day. That doesn't really give much time for me to visualize things, unfortunately. But my slow mornings on weekends or my work from home days, I like to have a loose map of what I'm going to do. So that it's kind of like time blocking, but in a very kind of casual way, I would say. Sometimes with time blocking, it can feel really suffocating because people are planning like 30-minute chunks in their day or like 1 hour chunks in their day. I don't do that. So I do 2 to 3 hour chunks and figure out what I want to do in those blocks. And that way I have a general map of how I want the day to go. The reason I like this method so much is because it gives me an intention for the day of how I want to use my time. And I'm not just kind of like reacting to the day and letting the wind take me wherever it takes me. I've got a little bit more of an idea of like, okay, in the evening, I want to make dinner and then I want to go on a walk with my dog. And then I want to make sure that I have time to read my novel that I've been wanting to read. So it kind of gives you a better plan to go about your day.
I like that a lot. So, you bring up something I've never heard before too, and like giving yourself grace to have a different type of tone and start to your day, like fast mornings versus slow mornings. And I think many of us probably just happen to actually have fast mornings and slow mornings, but really being intentional about that too, rather than kind of beating ourselves up around like, oh, I didn't get a moment to, start my day the way that I wanted to. I just had to launch into it. And taking that pressure off of yourself and allowing space for, kind of that reflection and intention setting when you're really able to sink into it and do it. I think that's really smart, Dr. Mani. I like that.
Thank you. Yeah, totally. I feel like there's more morning routines are obviously very popular these days.
Mm.
And I think there's a lot of weird pressure that we need to be doing all of our morning routine things every single day. Like we need to be journaling, we need to be like
Yeah, yeah.
getting sunlight, we need to be going on a walk, we need to be reading a book. Like all of those things are great, like on a Saturday morning or like a Sunday morning if you have the time. But for most of us, let's be real, like we don't have time to do that on the weekdays. And so, yes, there's something really freeing about thinking about your day as like, all right, today is going to be a fast morning. So I'm not going to feel any guilt about not doing the things that I want to be doing on a morning routine. Today, the most important thing is to be able to get ready and get out the door and make it to work on time. And then you have days where you wake up and you're like working from home, or let's say it's the weekend and you're like, you know what, today is going to be a slow morning day. So I am going to give myself like the time and the space to do all of like the relaxing kind of morning routine things. So I personally, on those mornings, are like my absolute favorite. I like to go outside first thing in the morning and get sunlight into my eyes because it helps a lot with your circadian rhythm and your energy. And then I drink water with electrolytes. I usually read a book for 20 or 30 minutes, and then I take my dog on a walk. So that's kind of like my slow morning routine. But yeah, there's definitely something about giving yourself permission to tell your mind, like, today is a fast morning and I'm not going to do anything except for get ready and go to work, and it's fine.
Such a good point, too. And I think for a lot of people listening, whether they own their business or not, or they work in a private practice, own a private practice, but most importantly, are in a field of service, which I think for the most part, whether you are a service provider or even like a product based goods business owner, you are serving your customers
Yeah.
in some way. And what you're saying really, really reminds me of something that I've been focused on even in my business too, and that I have certain days for certain outcomes, and the outcome will determine my output. So, like Mondays are really all about clients. Like, this is when I give my time and energy to my clients. Tuesdays are when I give my time and my energy to my team. And then, like, the rest of the week is, like, I've got kind of more those half day chunks where it's, like, toggling between the 2. Something that I think, I've talked a little bit about before is the doom of context switching when we're going
Yeah.
back and forth from things to things. So I love that you break down these chunks of time too, and not just, like, back to back, get it all done, but, like, I'm giving myself, like, flexibility in my day, 2 to 3 hours. I definitely wanna do these things, and it's more about, Dr. Mani having, fast days, which are like sounds like you're giving yourself to your patients, right? And then
But
slow mornings where you're like, "This is when I get to look inward, and this is about me." And this balance is incredibly important because I think a lot of us are just rushing from
yeah.
thing to thing all the time and not taking that intentional pause, which can feel like, what am I accomplishing for a lot of people? But, I guess I'd be curious for you, like, what shifts have you seen? Like, when you take these slow mornings, when you're not answering emails, addressing patient concerns, like, how are you benefiting from slowing down in your life?
Oh, yeah. Slowing down is really beneficial. I feel like, having that again, it's like we talk about balance a lot, but like balancing those really fast days where you're just like go, 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 to having those slower days where you're a little bit more purposeful with your time is huge. Um, there's certain things that I've kind of implemented on my days that are a little bit slower that help me enjoy it more. And those, like one of the biggest things that I've done that's really not a big thing, it's kind of a small thing, but it's made a big impact, is having more, making more time for active leisure. So, active leisure is a concept that's coined by Laurie Santos, who's a famous Yale professor and psychologist that runs a course on the science of happiness. But basically, what it is the ability to have time for yourself that's not scrolling, that's not streaming, that's doing something that is relaxing and restorative and recharging. So for me, that's like reading a book and like just curling up on the couch with my dog reading a book. Or I like to go stand up paddle boarding, or people like to play pickleball these days. But doing things with your day and with your free time that is really recharging and restorative, because I think a lot of times we default to just watching TV on Netflix or like scrolling on our phone. And while watching TV seems relaxing, at the end of it, it really isn't for us. And it's like all that, it seems like all that time that we spent watching TV just went away, but we really didn't get anything out of it. So that's been like a small change that I've made that's been super helpful.
Oh, totally. I am not much of a TV watcher myself. I mean, like, if I do, it's like, on a Friday night, Saturday night kind of thing. But you would never catch me like at the end of the workday, like flipping on the TV. And, I feel like that's also the way that I've seen you phrase it before is like optimizing your time. So, like, when you only have so much time, like, how can I truly maximize it? Not just to get things done, but to benefit from that time as well too, would you say?
Yeah. So one of the other really like small things, but has had a big impact when it comes to kind of not optimizing my time to like do more productive work, but basically optimize my time to like be a little bit more fulfilled is to treat my social event or like social connections with friends with the same amount of importance as my work events. So I literally
Mm.
make plans with friends and treat them like they were meetings or appointments, put them in my calendar. And I feel like in this day and age, you have to do that. Otherwise, you just don't have fun and you don't ever really get to see your friends. And yes, it's kind of sad. Like I have to like plan things like weeks in advance. Like, but that's just how we are. Like I'm busy, my friends are busy, and there's no shame to that. You do that, you put it in your calendar. I have one friend who's amazing, and I've kind of like taken this from her, but we have like a text thread with our friends, and she just says, "Hey, everyone text what days of the month you're free to do something." And everyone just, spits out the numbers that they're free of the days that month. And then whatever days coincide are the days that we plan something. And then we have at least, a couple things on the calendar. And I try to plan like one fun event with friends every week. And that has made a really huge impact. Like I used to not do that, and then once I started implementing that, like my happiness has skyrocketed.
Oh, that reminds me of something I saw on social media the other day, and it was, one of those like self-development, love your life type posts. And I love what they had shared as well too. Like, don't live life waiting for the weekends, right? Like, making plans with friends, keeping those plans sacred. It doesn't mean like for me, I honestly don't get to see my friends usually not quite weekly, but lately it's been more often. And I totally agree. Like, it's nice to just kind of fill your cup again with things outside of work as well too. But I mean, that being said though too, Dr. Mani, I mean, we're talking a lot about making space for yourself, but I definitely have seen this in your content, but also again, especially in the dermatology field, this demand of your time to be a content creator and to be kind of like an influencer. And it's like a big deal on social media, right?
Yeah.
Do you feel like, gone are the days where, you would go to work and like you said, your primary focus is patient care. But you're also a content creator. When do you do that? When do you fit in the demands around that?
Honestly, it's a challenge, and I am absolutely not perfect at it. I love, I think at the core, teaching and educating, and that's where my desire to make content comes from. Especially, I love educating and teaching about dermatology and skincare on my social media platforms because that's obviously like my first love. But what we're talking about here, like intentional living, time management, basically trying to build ourselves a lives that's balanced, that we love, is truly my passion outside of medicine. And yeah, while it's hard, there's seasons, so there's some seasons where my work in dermatology and skin cancer surgery is really busy, like right now, and I don't really have much time to do a lot of content creation. And there are some times where that kind of slows down a little bit, and I do have that time. So I think that brings up an important point, which is work life balance isn't really balance is kind of a misnomer. I don't
Yeah.
really like using that because there's seasons in our lives where we're going to be working more, and then there's other seasons in our lives where we're going to be having more life or more play and more fun. And the point is to not be 100 like 50, the point is not to be 50% balance and 50% the other all the time, but basically just to be doing what we want to be doing, not just
Mm.
passively reacting, but being like intentional and saying, yeah, in this season, I have this work goal that I want to be working towards. And so I'm going to be doing a lot more work, and play is going to be kind of put to the back burner. And then having some seasons where it's the opposite. So that's kind of the ethos that I try to live by. So everything kind of waxes and wanes.
Absolutely. Like, and also being aware of seasons come and go, right? So we get into a really tricky situation, especially like, when we are not in balance, even if it's for a limited amount of time, if we, easily sort of let it spiral, right? I've definitely caught myself in that where I'm like, I'm in this season, I'm in a launch season. And then the launch season comes and goes, and it's like jumping to the next thing. And I'm a big believer too in that, like, setting a goal, making sure that there's a timeline attached to whatever outcome as well too. And really getting very intentional about, exactly as you said, those seasons, because seasons don't last 6 months,
Right.
right? Like, unless you're in California like you, maybe, yeah. Where I am in the Midwest, that is not the case. 3 months tops, comes and goes.
Right.
And so that being said, like, just also getting intentional about your intentions, if that makes sense. Like, I am in a busy season, and we're gonna put a start date and an end date, and at least create those boundaries around that. So if you can't necessarily have balance, you have boundaries, and that can
Mhm.
certainly, I think, help us navigate the demands that, others put on us, and, of course, we put on ourselves as well too. Are there any other, like, strategic changes that you would recommend for people listening to really help, whether it's optimize their time, or even, on a bigger scale, make a bigger impact with the time that they do have, particularly those that are either in healthcare or a service type business where, their livelihood is really based on them giving their time, right? Any tips around that, Dr. Mani?
Yeah, I think that a if you have a job where you're in service and you are giving your time for your career, that obviously, like, there's just no way around that. You have to do that. Like, for example, like being a physician, like, you have to go to work and you have to do it. But I think that the place that we can make the most time and energy um, for ourselves is after that. So in the free time after, that's really where the gold is. That's really where, like, the flexibility is, and that's really what we can do with that time. Or that's the best time that we can edit and we can make the most effective changes. And so what I like to do is, honestly, I am a really big believer in task management. And like we touched on before, is like helping with our mental workload. And just a really real world practical tip, my favorite thing, like what I use to literally run my life, is an app called To Do. TEUXDEUX is what it's called. And the reason I love it so much is because it's very simple. And basically, what it is you have a calendar view at the top. By the way, there's a free app version. There's also a desktop version. The desktop version you have to pay for, but honestly, it's gold and it's worth every single penny. But the top half of the screen is a calendar view with each of the days of the week, and then the bottom half is just like an area with where you can just brain dump lists. And so I like to dump all of the to-do items that like come up in my brain. And then what the beauty of this is that you can drag and drop the different to-do items onto the calendar day. So it gives you this really great way that you can organize, like, on this day after work, I want to do this task. On that day after work, I've got to take, my son to soccer practice or whatever. So you can really visually see everything laid out. And I think that plus time blocking, like I talked about before, those two things in conjunction really give you the ability to control that time outside of your workday, and make time for the things that you really want to do. it's important to always like step back and kind of like do an audit and see how you're using your time, and make sure that you're using it in a way that feels authentic and balanced, and in a way that you want to be using it. So those are kind of like my practical, like kind of real world tools that I like to use.
Thank you for sharing that tool, by the way. I love it when people come on and don't gatekeep and they're like, this is how I do it. Like, I stay organized with the help of this tool. It's not magic, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I think it's totally reasonable to lean on things like, a little bit of technology to keep us sort of centered and organized. I just pulled up to do on my screen. I am getting it. I love this. I feel like that's such a great way to organize, like you said. Priorities,
Yeah.
especially. I am a big believer in this saying, what do they say? Eat the frog, which is like
Yeah.
do the things that you like have to do first.
First. Mhm.
And it can be tough when like you see your to-do list. And I think psychologically we are like, oh, let's just do the easiest things first,
Mhm.
right? But like, that can go on another to-do list, like the must-haves, the nice to haves, the need to
Yeah.
haves, things along those lines. I feel like this is a really nice way to be able to organize it. I use something called Asana at work, which
Mhm.
I love, but that's more like projects. I think to do is something that a lot of people will be interested in checking out as well too, as a way to just kind of prioritize. And I love that you mentioned, like, if you don't get something done on your to-do list, you can move it and just have that level of flexibility also too.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Yeah, totally. I love it. I am the type of person where, like Asana and Notion are like really great platforms. But for me to run my personal life, it just felt a little bit too complicated and a little bit too cumbersome. Like I wanted something that was fast and easy, and I used to be a paper person where I used to have, like, a paper planner and, like, a paper to-do list, and I have digitized and I have found to do to be, like, the closest thing to paper that's not, that's, like that, goes across all of your devices, and so, yeah, I love it. I just think it's very simple and easy to use.
Yeah, I like that. I felt that yesterday. I went into the office and I'm like, oh my God, I've got my notepad, my laptop, my mouse, my planner. I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is why I don't go to the office. Like, I have to transport everything over there. So, yes, simplify to amplify, as they say.
Yeah.
Dr. Amani, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you'd like to share?
I think we've talked about such great things. I would just like to share that if someone is listening to this and feeling like super overwhelmed, like, oh my gosh, they're talking about all of these things, like, where do I even start? I would say the tiniest, simplest thing you can do is just write everything down. Like, don't hold all of the things in your brain that are weighing down on you. Put it all out on paper, see it all laid in front of you. And then there's something just so freeing about seeing everything written out in front of you that makes it easier to figure out what the next steps are. So that's kind of like one little piece of advice I would give to people if they're listening to this and they're feeling kind of a little bit overwhelmed. But otherwise, I would love to connect with the audience on my social media platforms. I could talk about this stuff all day. I love it. Like I said, outside of dermatology, like this is what I live for. I love it. And they can follow me on Instagram, Mani, Mani .j.md. And then for long form content, I'm building up my YouTube channel, and that is Mani Jayemd, no punctuation. And yeah, I would love to see everyone there.
Amazing. Yes, get in touch with Dr. Mani. We'll put those links in the show notes. It was such a pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you for carrying this torch for so many.
Thank you.
We're excited to share your message and so appreciate having you on.
Thank you for having me. I had so much fun.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope this episode deposited some useful advice and insights to help you grow your wealth. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future conversations. You can find more resources, episode details, and updates at growyourwealthpodcast.com. And let's keep the conversation going on Instagram. Follow me at Grow Your Wealth Podcast. I'd love to hear your thoughts, questions, or takeaway from today's show. Until next time, remember, burnout is optional. Take care, and I'll see you next week.